December 22nd, 1944, somewhere north of Bastogne, in the frost-choked pines of the Ardennes. An American platoon dug into a ridgeline they can't hold and won't abandon. 37 men, most from Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, places where radios meant grain reports and Saturday sermons. Now they're pinned by a German sniper battalion that knows exactly where they are. The platoon's SCR 300 radio sits propped against a frozen log. It hums. It transmits. Staff Sergeant Harlan Moss can send his voice out across 2 miles of snow and static, but the receiver's dead. Has been since the convoy took shrapnel 3 days prior. So they can talk. They just can't hear. No confirmation, no orders. No warning if help is coming or if the line's collapsing 600 yards west. And the Germans, dug in across a narrow draw, maybe 200 meters out, have been watching, listening, waiting for movement, for panic, for mistakes. Moss keys the mic one more time, speaks into silence, then sets it down. They can't call for help, they can't move without being cut apart, and they can't wait much longer. But maybe they can still use what's broken. They call themselves the Heartland men, not because of any official designation, but because that's what they are. Farm boys and shop clerks, men who knew how to fix a tractor in the mud or rewire a grain elevator when the manual didn't help. 2nd Battalion, 423rd Infantry Regiment, 106th Division. Green troops who'd been in Europe less than a month before the Germans tore through the Ardennes and turned the quiet sector into a killing ground. Staff Sergeant Harlan Moss is 31, old by infantry standards, a mechanic from outside Omaha before the war. Steady hands, calm voice. The kind of man who doesn't panic when something breaks. He just starts looking for what still works. Next to him is Corporal Eddie Voss, a radio operator from a Kansas wheat town, 22 years old and built like wire. Voss knows Morse, knows frequencies, knows the SCR 300 inside and out, and right now he's staring at it like it betrayed him. The rest of the platoon is spread thin along a shallow ridge, 300 yards of frozen dirt and pine. Riflemen, a BAR team, a medic named Kirby who hasn't slept in 2 days. They're supposed to be holding a crossroads 2 miles back, but the German offensive pushed them off it on December 19th. So they fell back here, dug in, waited for orders that never came, because the radio died. It happened during the retreat. A Panzerfaust round hit the back of their supply truck, shredded the engine block, and sent shrapnel through the canvas. Voss grabbed the radio before the truck went up, saved the transmitter. But the receiver took a shard of steel right through the tuning coil. No sparks, no smoke, just dead. Voss tried a field repair that first night, pulled the casing, checked every wire, every solder point. Nothing. The transmitter still worked. He could key the mic, modulate the signal, send voice out into the ether. But without the receiver, there was no way to hear a response, no way to know if anyone was listening, no way to get orders, intel, or a warning if the line was collapsing. And it gets worse. 4 days into the German offensive, the woods are full of enemy movement, patrols, snipers, reconnaissance teams trying to locate isolated American units and wipe them out before they can regroup. The platoon spotted them on the 2nd day. A German sniper battalion, maybe 60 men, dug into the tree line across a narrow draw, close enough to hear voices on a still morning, close enough that moving in daylight means dying. The Germans haven't attacked yet. They don't need to. They've got the high ground on 3 sides, and they know the Americans are stuck. All they have to do is wait. Wait for the platoon to try moving. Wait for them to panic. Wait for them to make noise. And Moss knows it. He's seen how this plays out. Isolated units get cut off, surrounded, forced to surrender or fight their way out, and lose half their men doing it. The only way to survive is to link back up with the regiment, get new orders, or call in support. But they can't do any of that without a working radio. So here they are. December 22nd, 4th day of the siege. Supplies running low. No contact with command. A German sniper battalion 200 metres out, watching and waiting. They can talk, but they can't hear. And in the Ardennes, in the winter of 1944, silence is just another way to die. The first thing they try is field wire. On the morning of December 23rd, Moss sends 2 men, Privates Dunn and Hollis, crawling west through the snow with a spool of communications wire. The idea is simple. String a line back toward friendly positions, maybe a mile out, and hope they hit another unit with a working radio. Bypass their dead receiver entirely. Old-fashioned. Reliable. Dunn and Hollis make it 300 yards before a rifle crack splits the air. Dunn hits the snow. Not wounded, just smart. They wait. Another shot. Closer. The German snipers have them bracketed. They can't see where the shots are coming from, but they know what happens if they keep moving. So they crawl back. Slow. The wire stays in the snow. Moss watches them come in, breath steaming, fingers blue. He doesn't say anything. Neither do they. The second attempt happens that afternoon. Corporal Voss has an idea. If the transmitter works, maybe they can rig a one-way system. Send out a coded message on a loop. Hope someone picks it up and responds over a different frequency they can monitor with a backup receiver. Except they don't have a backup receiver. What they do have is a field telephone, the EE8, which technically has a listening circuit. It's designed for wire, not radio waves, but Voss thinks he can jury-rig it. He works for 2 hours in the snow, strips the EE8 casing, runs a bypass from the SCR 300's antenna, lead to the telephone's induction coil, tries to boost the weak signal with a spare battery pack. It's delicate work. His hands shake from cold, and the solder won't hold right in freezing temps, but he gets it wired. Then he keys the radio mic, sends a test signal, holds the telephone handset to his ear. Nothing. He adjusts the frequency, tries again, static faint, distant static, but no voice, no response. The telephone circuit isn't sensitive enough, or the frequencies don't match, or the whole idea was a long shot to begin with. Voss sets the handset down, exhales. Moss watches from a few feet away, arms crossed, face unreadable. Close, Voss says quietly. Close doesn't count, Moss replies, but his tone isn't hard, just factual. By nightfall on the 23rd, the temperature drops to 10 degrees. The Germans are still out there. No movement, no shots, just the knowledge that they're watching, waiting. The platoon can't stay here much longer. Supplies are nearly gone. Ammunition's rationed. Kirby, the medic, is treating frostbite now, not wounds. Moss considers their options. They could try to move at night, slip through the German lines and head west. But they don't know where the line is anymore. Don't know if it even exists. Could be walking straight into an enemy position. Could be wandering into an artillery zone. Without radio contact, it's a blind gamble. They could sit tight and hope for a breakthrough. Hope the regiment pushes back through and finds them. But hope doesn't stop snipers. Hope doesn't bring food. Or they could try to fight their way out. 37 men against a dug-in sniper battalion. Moss has done the math. It doesn't work. So they wait. Another night. Another frozen morning on December 24th. Christmas Eve in the Ardennes, and all they can do is sit in a hole and watch the tree line. And then just after dawn, Moss hears something. A faint crackle from the SCR 300. Not a voice, just static. A burst of it. Then silence. He looks at Voss. Voss is already moving toward the radio, hands fumbling with the dials. Anything? Moss asks. Voss shakes his head. Just interference. Probably ours. Probably close. Moss stares at the radio, at the dead receiver, and at the transmitter that still works. And then he stops. They can talk, but they can't hear. But maybe the Germans can. Moss kneels beside the radio for a long time, just looking at it. Voss watches him, curious but quiet. Around them the platoon stays low, rifles trained on the tree line, breath rising in thin clouds. The static hiss fades. The forest goes silent again. Then Moss speaks. "They've been listening," he says. Voss blinks. "Who?" "The Germans." Moss taps the transmitter casing. "We've been sending out signals for 3 days. Test calls, position reports, requests for orders. All of it going out clear as daylight on an open frequency." Voss nods slowly. "Yeah, standard procedure, but nobody's answering." "Right, nobody's answering." Moss looks up. "But somebody might be listening." It takes Voss a moment, then his eyes narrow. "You think they've been monitoring us?" "Why wouldn't they?" Moss gestures toward the German lines across the draw. "They know we're here. They know we're stuck. They've got radios too, probably better ones. If I were them, I'd be listening to every American frequency I could find, trying to figure out our strength, our plans, our morale." Voss sits back on his heels. He's quiet for a beat, then, "So they've heard everything we've said." "Everything," Moss confirms. "Every time we tried to call for help. Every time we reported our position. Every time we said we were cut off and couldn't move." "Which means they know we're weak." "Yeah." Moss pauses. "But it also means they're listening." Voss stares at him, and then slowly he starts to understand. "You want to lie to them?" Moss doesn't smile, but there's something sharp in his eyes now, something that wasn't there an hour ago. "I want to give them a reason to move, or a reason to leave, or a reason to think we're not worth the fight." He leans forward, voice low and deliberate. The transmitter works. "We can send, we just can't receive. But if the Germans are listening, and I think they are, then we don't need to receive. We just need to make them believe what we say." Voss is nodding now, faster. "Fake radio traffic." "Exactly." Moss ticks off fingers. "We send transmissions like we're talking to command. Like we're getting responses. Like we're coordinating with units that aren't there. Make it sound like we're not alone. Make it sound like we're reinforced, resupplied, dug in for the long haul. Or," Voss adds, his voice quickening, "we make it sound like we're pulling out. Like we got orders to withdraw and we're leaving the position." Moss considers that, then nods. "Either way, we control what they hear. We control what they think." Voss looks at the radio again, the dead receiver, the working transmitter, and for the first time in days, it doesn't feel broken. It feels like a tool, a weapon. "But it has to sound real," Voss says. "If we just start babbling into the mic, they'll know it's fake. We need call signs, proper protocol, timing, pauses like we're actually listening to responses." "We can do that," Moss says. "You know the format. You know how these calls sound." "I do." Voss exhales, fog curling from his lips. "But what's the play?" "What do we want them to do?" Moss thinks. He looks out at the draw, at the tree line where the Germans are dug in, at the narrow frozen stretch of ground between them. "We make them think we're leaving," he says finally. "Make them think we got orders to pull back west and link up with the regiment. We stage it, make it loud, make it convincing. And if they believe it, if they think we're abandoning the position, they'll either move in to occupy it or shift their focus somewhere else. And if they move in," Moss meets his eyes, "then we're ready for them." Voss is quiet. Then he picks up the radio handset, turns it over in his hands, tests the weight of it. "When do we start?" he asks. Moss checks his watch. December 24th, 0700 hours. Christmas Eve morning in the Ardennes. "Now," he says. They start with the script. Moss gathers 3 men who can sound calm under pressure. Voss, Private Leroy, and Sergeant Hatch. 4 voices. Enough to make it sound like multiple radio operators, multiple units, multiple conversations. They sketch out the framework on the back of a ration box. Call signs, unit designations, response timings. It has to feel like a real exchange, even though only one side is transmitting. Voss writes it out in shorthand. They'll play both sides of the conversation, ask questions, then pause as if listening, then respond as a different unit. The illusion of dialogue, the illusion of command structure, the illusion of strength. The first transmission goes out at 0730 hours. Voss keys the mic. His voice is steady, clipped, professional. "Overwatch, this is Red Fox Actual, requesting status update on withdrawal timeline. Over." He releases the key, counts to 5. Silence. Then he keys again, this time shifting his tone slightly, deeper, more authoritative, like a different voice answering back. "Red Fox Actual Overwatch. Withdrawal authorized for 1,500 hours. Rally point Echo 7. Armored support en route to your position. Acknowledge. Over." Another pause, then back to his original voice. "Overwatch Red Fox Actual. Acknowledged. Will coordinate movement with adjacent units. Out." He sets the handset down, looks at Moss. "How'd that sound?" "Again," Moss says, but slower on the pauses. "Make them think you're actually waiting for a reply." They run it again and again, adjusting timing, adjusting phrasing. By the 3rd pass, it sounds real. Now they build the sequence. Over the next 2 hours, they stage a series of transmissions. Not all at once, that would seem suspicious. They space them out, make it feel organic, natural. At 0815, Leroy sends a request for ammunition resupply, pauses, then confirms a fictional delivery time. At 0900, Hatch reports enemy positions to a non-existent forward observer, pauses, then acknowledges coordinates for artillery support that will never come. At 0945, Voss requests medical evacuation for wounded men, pauses, then confirms a helicopter is inbound, even though the weather's too bad to fly. Each transmission is careful, deliberate. They use real call signs pulled from memory, real unit numbers, real map coordinates just west of their position to make it sound like they're coordinating with nearby forces. And between each call, they wait. They watch the German tree line, looking for movement, looking for reaction, nothing yet. At 1100 hours, Moss keys the mic himself. His voice is calm but edged with urgency, just enough to sound real. "All Red Fox elements, this is Red Fox Actual. Prepare for full withdrawal at 1500 hours. Destroy non-essential equipment. Maintain noise discipline until movement order. Acknowledge by squad. Pause. Then Voss playing another squad leader. Red Fox Actual, Red Fox 2. Acknowledged. Pause. Leroy. Red Fox Actual, Red Fox 3. Acknowledged. Pause. Hatch. Red Fox Actual, Red Fox 4. Acknowledged. Moss keys again. Overwatch, Red Fox Actual. All elements confirmed for withdrawal. Standing by. He sets the handset down. The platoon waits. Moss moves along the line, positioning men. If the Germans believe the transmissions, if they think the Americans are pulling out, they might move in to occupy the ridge. And if they do, the platoon needs to be ready. Riflemen spread wide. The bar team positioned to cover the draw. Grenades within reach. At 1300 hours, Voss sends one more transmission, the final piece. Overwatch Red Fox Actual, movement initiated, withdrawing west to rally point Echo 7. Out he kills the mic, sets the radio down, looks at Moss. Moss nods. Now it's time to let the enemy listen. 14:30 hours. The forest is silent. The platoon lies flat along the ridge, rifles aimed downslope, fingers resting along trigger guards, not on triggers. Moss's rule. No one moves, no one speaks. They've been in position for 2 hours, watching the tree line across the draw where the German sniper battalion has been dug in since December 19th. Nothing. Then, at 14:47, movement. It's subtle at first, a shadow shifting between pines, then another, then 3 more. The Germans are coming out of their positions, not charging, not advancing with aggression, just moving, carefully, methodically, spreading out along the far edge of the draw like they're preparing to sweep the ridge. They think the Americans are gone. Moss watches through a pair of cracked binoculars. He counts heads. 12, 15, 20. More coming. They're moving in a loose skirmish line, rifles low, not expecting contact. Why would they? The radio said the position was being abandoned. The radio said withdrawal at 1500 hours. And it's 1450 now. Moss lowers the binoculars, looks left, looks right. His men are stone, waiting for the signal. Voss is 10 feet away, bar braced against a log. Kirby's crouched behind a pine with his M1. Hatch has a grenade in each hand. Moss watches the Germans descend into the draw. Closer now. 150 meters. 120. They're bunched tighter than they should be, moving with the confidence of men who think the fight is over. 100 meters. Moss raises his hand. Every man on the ridge sees it. They don't move yet. They just wait. 80 meters. The Germans reach the bottom of the draw. They pause, scanning the ridge line, looking for abandoned equipment, discarded supplies, anything that confirms the Americans pulled out. 70 meters. One of them says something. Moss can't hear the words, but he hears the tone. Casual, relaxed. The German closest to the ridge slings his rifle, starts climbing. 60 meters. Moss drops his hand. The ridge erupts. The BAR opens first. Voss fires in controlled bursts. 3 rounds shift 3 more. The lead German goes down before he knows what hit him. Then the riflemen open up. M1S cracking in rhythm. Shots tight and aimed. The Germans in the draw scatter, diving for cover that isn't there. Hatch throws both grenades. They tumble down the slope and detonate in white flashes. Snow and dirt kick up. Shouts in German. Someone screaming. The firefight lasts 90 seconds. The Germans try to return fire, but they're caught in the open, exposed. Some retreat back toward their original positions. Others go down in the snow and don't move. A few try to flank right, but the BAR cuts them off. By the time Moss calls ceasefire, the draw is empty except for bodies and silence. The platoon stays low, breathing hard, ears ringing. Moss scans the tree line, waits for a counterattack. It doesn't come. Minutes pass, then 10, then 20. The German line across the draw stays quiet. No movement, no return fire. They've pulled back, either regrouping or deciding the ridge isn't worth the cost. At 1600 hours, the forest is silent again. Moss moves along the line, checks his men. No casualties. A few close calls, bullet holes in packs, a ricochet graze on Leroy's sleeve, but everyone's intact. Voss is reloading the BAR. Hatch is catching his breath. Kirby's hands are shaking, but he's smiling. Moss walks back to the SCR 300. It's still sitting there. Transmitter humming faintly. Receiver dead as ever. He picks up the handset, keys the mic one last time. Overwatch Red Fox Actual. Contact broken. Position secure, holding until further orders. Out, he sets it down. They hold the ridge through the night. By morning, the Germans are gone. No barrage, no reinforcements, just a broken radio and what they made of it. The platoon held that ridge for 3 more days. On December 27th, elements of the 3rd Armoured Division pushed through from the west and re-established contact. By then, the German Sniper Battalion was long gone, pulled back or redeployed deeper into the Ardennes as the offensive stalled. The Heartland men walked out under their own power. 37 went in. 37 came out. The SCR 300 never worked again. Voss carried it back anyway. What Moss and his men did wasn't new. It wasn't revolutionary. Deception has been part of warfare since men started keeping records of it. But in the winter of 1944, in the chaos of the Ardennes, radio deception became a survival tool for units cut off from command and low on options. The US Army Signal Corps had been experimenting with fake radio traffic since North Africa. They called it special handling, scripted transmissions designed to mislead enemy intelligence. Entire phantom units were created on paper and given voices over the airwaves. Fake supply requests, fake troop movements, fake coordination between divisions that didn't exist. The goal was simple: make the enemy allocate resources to fight ghosts. But those operations were planned, coordinated, run by specialists with functioning equipment and command oversight. What Moss did was different. He wasn't following a manual. He was improvising with what he had: a half-working radio, a handful of men who understood how the system was supposed to sound, and the knowledge that someone on the other side was listening. It was fieldcraft, intuition, the kind of problem-solving that happens when the rulebook doesn't cover your situation and waiting for orders isn't an option. The Germans were listening. That much is certain. Intercepting Allied radio traffic was standard practice for Wehrmacht intelligence units throughout the war. They had direction-finding equipment, trained operators, and protocols for exploiting careless transmissions. American units were warned repeatedly: assume the enemy is listening, use brevity codes, change frequencies, maintain signal discipline. Most of the time that meant staying quiet. Moss did the opposite. He fed the enemy exactly what he wanted them to hear, and when they believed it, they moved, and when they moved, they lost. Historians debate how often this kind of improvised deception occurred. Records are incomplete. After-action reports don't always capture the small, desperate tricks used by isolated units. But there are fragments, mentions in division logs, stories passed down through veteran accounts, small moments where broken equipment and creative thinking bought time, bought lives, bought another day. The Ardennes was full of those moments, men holding crossroads they shouldn't have been able to hold, squads slipping through encirclements that should have been airtight. Radios used not for communication but for misdirection. The official histories focus on Bastogne, on Patton's relief columns, on the eventual collapse of the German offensive. But underneath that, in the frozen woods and forgotten ridgelines, were thousands of small decisions that added up to survival. Moss never wrote about it, neither did Voss. After the war they went home, back to Nebraska, back to Kansas, back to ordinary lives with toolboxes and quiet routines, the kind of men who fixed what was broken and didn't talk much about how. But the lessons stayed. Not specialists, but solvers. Not better gear, but better ideas. Not waiting for someone else to save you, but using what you had, even if what you had was broken, and making it enough. In the end, the Ardennes wasn't won by the men with the best radios or the newest tanks or the most ammunition. It was won by the men who refused to quit when everything fell apart. The men who looked at a dead receiver and a working transmitter and asked the only question that mattered: What can I still do with this? And then did it. In a forest of broken things, the sharpest weapon was a working mind.